Ladies and gentlemen, I would say take your seats, but it looks like it's a full house. If you have an open seat next to you by chance, raise your hand so that somebody else can sit down. There's a space over here. Great. Well, let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We have people joining us from all over the world, so I welcome you all, and thank you so much for being here today with us. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the International Year of the Woman Farmer 2026. My name is Lauren Phillips. I'm the Deputy Director of the Rural Transformation and Gender Equality Division. And I would really like to extend my most heartfelt appreciation to Her Royal Highness Princess Basma bint Ali of Jordan, sitting next to me, and the Assistant Secretary General of Ireland, and all of the permanent representatives who have joined us today, as well as delegates and distinguished guests. Thank you for being here. I also want to welcome all of those who might be following online and who are joining the webcast. We'll have some interactive sessions, and hopefully we'll get to hear from those of you online as well. And I also want to say that we are very thankful to the two governments who are co-hosting this event with us, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and Ireland, which marks a formal commitment for the International Year and helps us to bring visibility and set the overall tone of the ambition for this important year. We have an exciting panel discussion ahead of us. After the opening remarks, we'll hear from several women farmers, and we're very excited to share their voices and their stories with all of you today. I'm now very pleased to pass the floor to Mr. Maximo Torero-Cullen, the Chief Economist of FAO. Maximo.
Thank you very much, Lauren, and what an honor to be here today. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for being with us today. So, Excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, and colleagues. We gather today to launch a year that reflects a clear global commitment to bring forward women whose labor and leadership sustain agri-food systems and whose contributions should be recognized, valued, and prioritized. So please let me join in an applause to all of them for the great work. For far too long, women farmers have remained invisible in policies, programs, and investments that shape their lives. They are insufficiently represented in the decisions that govern their futures. The United Nations General Assembly decision to declare 2026 the International Year of the Woman Farmer is a recognition that the world cannot end hunger, strengthen resilience, or build sustainable agri-food systems unless women farmers, in all their diversity, have the rights, resources, agency, and respect they deserve. Before I continue, please allow me warmly thank Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and the Government of Ireland for co-organizing this inaugural ceremony with FAO. Their partnerships and their long-standing commitment to women's empowerment, rural development, and sustainable agri-food systems set a powerful foundation for this year. So thank you so much for helping us on this process. The International Year of the Women's Farmer celebrates all women working across agri-food systems, in fields, forests, livestock, fisheries, markets, life sciences, and more. We celebrate women sustaining agri-food systems in all their diversity. They are young and older women, indigenous women, migrant women, women with disability. In short, all women whose skills, labor, care, and leadership are central to resilient and to sustainable agri-food systems. The FAO 2023 Status of Women in Agri-Food Systems report, which informed the declaration of this year, tells a story that we cannot ignore. Progress on women's empowerment in agri-food systems has largely stalled in the last decade. Women farmers continue to own and earn less. They work more hours, often under harsher conditions and with fewer protections. In many cases, we don't record all the hours they work. They carry their heaviest burdens with conflict, erupt crises, strike, and climate shocks intensifying. For example, every day of extreme heat reduces women's crop production by 3% more relative to men. And this is because of their lower capacity to have resilience because of the initial conditions where they are. Women farmers usually manage smaller plots, and even when they manage farms of the same size as men, their land produces 24% less. And this has nothing to do with their capacities and skills to be productive. This is because they don't have access to credit, they don't have land titles in their names, They don't have access to other resources, and even more, the mechanization technologies are not adapted for women capacities. This productivity gap is not because of this, as I said before, but because women have unequal access to resources and services, and because of structural inequalities, including restrictive social norms. The cost of inaction is enormous. We know from recent estimates that closing the gender gap in agriculture could raise global GDP by $1 trillion and reduce food insecurity for 45 million people. It's close to double of what we need to put in zero hunger Latin America and the Caribbean by 2030. Just imagine the magnitude of the numbers. This year should not simply be about recognizing and celebrating women farmers. It should be about significantly and collectively raising awareness of the important roles that women farmers play in agri-food systems, bringing policy attention to the multidimensional challenges they face, and promoting legal reforms and policy and programmatic action that allow women to have equal land rights, equal access to finance, to technology, to extension services, to markets, and to decision-making. And next year, we're going to work with Colombia, with our technical assistance, on how we can bring all this through the land transformation and the land reform policies that they are trying to push in their meeting next year in Colombia. Throughout 2026, at FAO, we will elevate the voices and stories of women farmers around the world, showcase evidence and solutions that work, mobilize governments, UN partners, civil society, and the private sector, foster partnerships, and incentivize the scaling of investments that empower women across value chains and strengthen data systems to better understand and value women's contributions. But this year will only succeed if it becomes a shared project. And I am very happy to see the high attendance in this room today. This is incredible, and this is great that this is what we need. We need to work together. We need every partner, every institution, every ministry, every researcher, donor, and private sector actor to the table. Global initiatives like FAO's Commit to Grow Equity, which seeks to enhance gender equality and women's empowerment in agri-food systems through increased financing, investments, and partnerships, will be essential to realize the ambition of this international year. We already have incorporated this into the Hand in Hand initiative because we believe it's so important. The CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women and girls' empowerment provide a critical policy framework to accelerate the empowerment of women in agri-food systems. The guidelines are the first intergovernmental and multi-stakeholder negotiated global policy agreement specially focused on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. They provide practical recommendations that can be tailored to different national realities, driving real change in agri-food systems worldwide, and I hope that member states and organizations will draw on these guidelines as they consider ways to engage with the International Year of the Woman Farmer. Ongoing processes, such as the United Nations negotiation on financing for development, also provide a timely moment to align financing flows and policies with economic, social, and environmental priorities, including advancing gender equality in agri-food systems. These processes support and reinforce the objectives of the International Year of Women Farmer. We need to understand that they don't need a special treatment. They need equal conditions. And with that, they will empower themselves and they will bring what they want. That's what we are looking for. Today, we don't have initial conditions which are the same for men and women, and that's what we need to change and transform. Let us begin this year with clarity and enthusiasm. I encourage all members and organizations to play a proactive role in celebrating the International Year of Women Farmers, which we hope will lead to transformative change in policies, in investments, and in mindsets. Because when we provide the right conditions for women, the right conditions to be empowered, and empowerment means having equal wages under similar education conditions, having equal access to assets. That's what we are looking for here. Entire agri-food systems will be transformed. These are the heart of the year's slogan, Empower Women, Transforming Agri-Food Systems. I wish every success to the International Year of Women Farmers, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Maximo, for opening with such a strong call to action and also highlighting the costs of not incorporating women fully in agri-food systems, but also the benefits that could accrue if we address some of the gaps that you mentioned on land, access to credit, and other areas. I'm now very pleased to invite Ms. Geraldine Mukishima, who's the Vice President of IFAD, to deliver remarks. Unfortunately, the Vice President couldn't be here today, but she sent a video, so if you'll turn your attention to the screen, please.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate the International Year of Women Farmers, this is a moment to share a simple yet powerful truth. Women farmers are the backbone of rural life. They nurture soils, they safeguard seed, they carry knowledge across generations, and they keep communities strong and food systems resilient. Women shape the future of agriculture in every single day, strengthening food security, improving nutrition, reducing poverty, and elevating the well-being of rural communities. This International Year is an opportunity to recognize their contributions, honor their leadership, and elevate their voice. It is also a call to catalyze the change so that women farmers everywhere can fully realize their potential and their rights. At IFAD, we see firsthand the remarkable impact women farmers have in rural communities. Yet, their full potential can only be realized when they have true access to the essentials of success. This includes access to productive resources, access to financing, training, market, and to leadership roles and meaningful influence in the policies that shape their life. Supporting women farmers is not an add-on for IFAD. It is at the heart of our mandate because, for us, the principle is clear. When women advance, the rural development advances. Through our programs, partnership and policy work, we support rural women's leadership, strengthen the economic empowerment, and open pathways to new opportunities. With an annual investments of more than $1 billion across our portfolio, and with women accounting over half of our project's participants, IFAD stands as a powerful catalyst for women's empowerment. We see this impact around the world. In Nicaragua, women lead agroforestry practices. In Burkina Faso, they apply gender-sensitive financial tools. And in Bangladesh, where they are mobilizing to advance land rights. We also see it in our climate-focused investments, which make up 40% of IFAD's portfolio. Last month, we published a report on adaptation finance showing that every single US dollar invested in gender-sensitive climate adaptation yields up to 4 to 5 in broader economic benefits by reducing losses and increasing outputs. Ahead of COP30, IFAD's Gender Transformative Mechanism in Climate Adaptation launched a global advocacy campaign urging climate investments where the impact is greatest, that is, in women smallholder farmers. The campaign highlights women farmers in Ethiopia, where women's leadership in irrigation water users associations is generating equitable community water access. And in India, where women are making profits and linking to global value chains by growing climate-resilient bamboo on formerly degraded land. As I close, I want to underscore the importance of leveraging this International Year as a catalyst for collective action. Working together, we can deliver meaningful change with rural women around the world. The joint program on rural women's economic empowerment is one example. It brings IFAD, FAO, World Food Program, and UN Women together in a single approach, linking production, market, and leadership with a broader social and economic empowerment. And it shows what becomes possible when solutions are built with rural women and for rural women, guided by their priorities, their leadership, and their vision for the future. IFAD stands ready to work with all partners to make this International Year a turning point for women, for rural communities, and for a more resilient world. Thank you so much.
Thank you to IFAD, and we're now honored to welcome Her Royal Highness Princess Basma bint Ali. Your Royal Highness, the floor is.
الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Distinguished guests, honored partners, colleagues, it's my honor to stand before you at the launch of the International Year of the Woman Farmer. Today marks a milestone that has given me a great sense of promise for recognizing the strength, resilience, and essential contributions of women to agri-food systems. For centuries, women have played an instrumental role in nourishing their families, their community, and our world at large on one level or another. Today, that legacy continues, and across the globe, women remain the backbone, as Geraldine said, of food systems, constituting a critical share of the agri-food workforce, with an estimated 36% of working women in this field, and up to 48% in low-income countries. This includes production to processing to distribution, making agriculture one of the most important sources of livelihood for women globally. But these numbers, I must say, are quite deceiving if we are to be honest with ourselves. Allow me to share a personal experience that left a deep and quite sobering impression on me. It was the height of summer as I drove home. I passed vast fields of golden wheat being harvested. I had seen the workers early that morning, and there they still were, hours later, bent over the crop as the sun began to set. Something compelled me to stop. I walked into the field and greeted the man overseeing the work. As we spoke about the harvest, I noticed that every person doing the back-breaking labor was actually a woman, from the youngest to the eldest. So I asked almost casually, and I must admit very naively at that point, why none of the men were helping gathering the wheat. He laughed, took a drag from his cigarette, and replied, "Men don't do hard labor, that's women's work." In that moment, it struck me with painful clarity just how deeply entrenched these inequalities are. What he dismissed as women's work was only the most visible layer of a much larger reality. Across agri-food systems, women's contributions remain unrecognized, under-supported, under-resourced, and above all, deeply undervalued. Thus, inequality runs far deeper than who carries out the hardest physical labor. Women farmers face systemic barriers at every step, limited rights to land and water. Despite being primary cultivators, they receive lower wages and more precarious employment environments. restricted access to credit, technology, and extension services and markets. And they endure the overwhelming burden of unpaid care and household work that limits their economic opportunities. In many contexts, women legally own less than 15% of agricultural land, even though they are responsible for a significant share of production. Their labor is essential, yet their rights, rewards, and recognition fall far short. What I witnessed in that wheat field was not an isolated moment. It was a reflection of the structural inequities that shape women's daily lives across our agri-food systems, where in reality their contribution is beyond measure. For in production systems, women manage a significant portion of on-farm biodiversity, particularly seed selection, varietal conservation, and home garden agroecosystems that supply up to 60% of household micronutrients intake in many rural areas. They are primary managers of small ruminants and mixed crop livestock systems, which are essential for soil fertility, income diversification, and climate risk buffering. Women also hold much of the traditional ecological knowledge that underpins sustainable practices such as water-efficient irrigation, rangeland stewardship, and climate-adaptive crop management. In many regions, their labor contributes disproportionately to unpaid tasks, like collecting water, as I said, processing food, and managing household energy, which directly supports the functioning of local agri-food economies and yet remains, as I said earlier, systematically undervalued and undercounted. However, these roles position women as indispensable agents of resilience and as key drivers of both ecological integrity and high agri-food system performance. Today, we launch this international year with a commitment to change the inequity. When I accepted the role of FAO Regional Goodwill Ambassador for the Near East and North Africa, it was with the conviction that our region holds immense potential for robust, productive agri-food systems, but unlocking that potential requires empowering the very people who nurture these systems, women farmers. Their leadership is essential to our environmental resilience, our food security, and our sustainable development. In Jordan, women are already leading the change. They rise early to work their land, adopt innovative agricultural methods, establish cooperatives, as you saw out earlier and tasted our food, all in an effort to provide for their families. Their stories echo across the Northeast and North Africa. These women do not wait for change. They create it. One example of this energy and leadership was the third Agricultural Scientific Conference in Irbid 2023, where women from across our rural communities showcased their agricultural and food processing products. Their presence spoke for itself. When women farmers are given a platform, they bring forward innovation and solutions. Witnessing their confidence and relentless creativity reaffirmed my conviction that empowering women farmers is not optional. It is essential for our future. The International Year of the Woman Farmer is an opportunity to honor their leadership through action. We must ensure women farmers have sovereignty over their own governance system, which includes decision-making process, fair access to land, and I couldn't stress that even more, finance, technology, and training. We must invest intentionally in women-led agri-food systems and support cooperatives that amplify women's voices and expand their opportunities. We must address the heavy burden of unpaid care that limits women's economic participation and ensure that their achievements are visible, valued, and supported. Because by empowering them, we are indirectly empowering their children and their community at large and ourselves. As FAO Goodwill Ambassador, I renew my pledge to champion this cause across our region and beyond. But this vision cannot be carried by one voice alone. It calls for the commitment of every government, every partner, every community, and every institution represented here and online. To every woman farmer across the globe, I say, we see you, we honor you, and we stand with and for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Royal Highness, for such a compelling vision and story. Thank you for being FAO's Regional Goodwill Ambassador. Thank you also to the Government of Jordan for being the chair of the International Steering Committee for the International Year. And I would also like to thank the farmers and chefs, both from Jordan and from Ireland, that were in the lobby and presented you all with such great food. If we can give them a round of applause as well, please. It's now my pleasure to pass the floor to Ms. Maria Doon, who's the Assistant Secretary General of Ireland's Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. The floor is yours.
Distinguished guests, friends, it's an absolute privilege to be here with you today as we look ahead to the UN International Year of the Woman Farmer. The International Year of the Woman Farmer is an opportunity for every nation to recognize the central role women play in agriculture, in food security, in rural economies, in nutrition, in poverty eradication, and in shaping the sustainable future of our agri-food systems. As several speakers have said this morning, we all know that women represent a large share of the global agricultural workforce and are key actors. Yet they continue to face significant barriers, including limited access to land, finance, technology, education, and decision-making. So when I was thinking, we're really delighted to co-sponsor the International Year of the Woman with Jordan, I was thinking about what this means to Ireland. So in Ireland, we often talk about how our country has undergone an economic and social transformation over the last 50 years. And it still comes as a shock to me when I think about this, but to put it in perspective, that is over the course of my lifetime. I was born into a country which had been independent for less than 50 years. It had emerged out of colonialism, a war of independence, and a difficult civil war, with all the challenges that entails for a country. My lifetime has witnessed enormous economic and social transformation in my country. Greater gender equality has played a major role in that transformation. Women have both actively driven and benefited from that change. Gender equality is a key priority for us domestically and globally. And the Irish government has committed to do more on gender equality across all sections of society, including specific commitments which will benefit women in agriculture. We do not claim to have all the answers, but we are on a journey, and we want to share that journey with you, and we want to learn from your journeys. Ireland has a strong agrarian tradition. Our agricultural heritage has been built by communities and generations of farmers. Many of these were women whose work was essential, yet often undervalued or invisible, the same across all the world. As we approach 2026, we have a chance not only to honour that legacy, but to accelerate change, to ensure that the women who are farming today and the young women who aspire to farm tomorrow are recognised, supported and empowered to lead. Ireland's co-sponsorship of the International Year of the Woman Farmer 2026, alongside Jordan, reflects this national commitment to advancing gender equality and strengthening the visibility of women's leadership in food systems. We recognise their crucial role and the barriers they face. In Ireland in 2023, we had a national dialogue to explore gender equality in farming and the agri-food sector, and how we might acknowledge and increase the visibility of women in agriculture. So the action plan that emerged out of the dialogue focused both on improving visibility and representation, but also crucially as well, it focused on practical support for women farmers, including capital grant support and training. We have also strengthened opportunities for young women, initiatives promoting education in agriculture, leadership development, digital skills and climate-smart farming, are helping build a new generation of women who will be influential decision makers in 2030, 2040 and beyond. Through our co-sponsorship, Ireland reaffirms its dedication to fostering leadership, opportunity and participation for women. We will showcase how some of our policy interventions have had a real impact. We aim to highlight the importance of creating women-centred training programmes, demonstrate how support schemes designed with inclusivity in mind help remove structural barriers to accessing capital investment, share the lessons from our advisory services and our work on gender-sensitive extension, reinforce how evidence-based policy making, supported by better data collection, gender disaggregated analysis and structured engagement with women farmers, strengthens the foundation for long-term equality. As co-sponsor, Ireland wants women farmers and agri-entrepreneurs to be front and centre throughout the year. This is really important to us. It's their story. I'm delighted that we have Irish women farmers and agri-entrepreneurs at our information booth out in the Hall of Flags. So if you haven't been there, please visit them. We have Sheila Flannery, a farmer and a member of a woman-only knowledge transfer group. And if you talk to Sheila, she will tell you about how these women-only discussion groups encourage tailored, female-focused, peer-to-peer learning in a safe, comfortable environment. We have Ciara Stanley. Ciara successfully completed our Acorns programme, and this is one of the real success stories in Irish agriculture. It supports early-stage female entrepreneurs living in rural Ireland. The initiative is facilitated by female entrepreneurs who already have successful businesses. And I had a really good conversation earlier with Ciara about this, and she will tell you it's about meeting other female entrepreneurs who are at various stages in their journey, what she can learn from them. And the real success story is the people who are mentored in this programme, they come back in following years and they volunteer to mentor and share their experience with other women. And it's those networks that are so important to us. We also have Niamh Dunphy. Niamh is a beef farmer, and she has carried out some really key climate change research about how farmers can contribute to climate resilience and sustainability. And she's also represented us really well at the World Food Forum, and she's down the back of the room there smiling up at us. Please engage with them to hear their experiences of both farming and of the initiatives they've participated in. I'm very proud to see them, our new generation of young Irish women farmers, and they really have an excellent story to tell. Joined up and targeted policy making is crucial. Also at our booth today is Elisa Good from the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. And Elisa plays a key role in ensuring that we have policy coherence. And she really works very hard to keep women in agriculture really at the top of the department's agenda. So our policy makers are really important in that aspect also. Through Ireland's international development cooperation, we also support global initiatives that uplift rural women, ensuring that our commitment to gender equity extends beyond our borders. In particular, we support the Commit to Grow Equality initiative, which aligns with our aim to embed gender equality as a driver of sustainable and inclusive growth in agri-food systems. And in particular, we have supported gender projects in Vietnam, Mexico, and Paolo. The International Year of the Woman Farmer is a powerful global signal that gender equality is not a niche issue, but a foundation of resilient food systems. It is a reminder that when women farmers have equal access to land, finance, training, and technology, farm productivity rises. When women's voices are included in decision-making, policies become more inclusive, more effective, and more sustainable. When rural women thrive, communities and entire economies thrive with them. In 2026, we have a platform to amplify these truths on the world stage. Investing in women is smart economics. Put simply, by investing in women, we are investing in more productive farms and more resilient communities. It is not just good economics, it is actually just common sense. The International Year of the Woman Farmer offers us a moment to reflect on how far we have come and a mandate to go further, faster. Let's use it to raise awareness of the role of women farmers, including their contributions to food security, nutrition, and poverty eradication. Let's use it to highlight actions that can help address gender equalities in agri-food systems and drive policy-making, programming, and increased investment to advance in gender equality and women's empowerment in agri-food systems. In 2026, the world will shine a bright light on the role of women in agriculture. Ireland wants to focus that light on our unwavering belief that women's full participation is essential to the strength, sustainability, and future of our agricultural sector. Let us use this moment to celebrate, to mobilise, and to commit to lasting change. To every woman who has farmed before us, is farming today, and dreams of a future on the land, 2026 is your year. Let's work together, and let's work with them as policymakers. Let's make it count.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dunn, and thanks for sharing the journey of Ireland and your strong support for gender equality across the years and the stories of several of the women who are here today. We really appreciate that. Now we're going to watch for the first time the official launch of the video for the International Year of the Woman Farmer. So I invite you all to look at the screens again.
Across the world, women are the backbone of agri-food systems. They grow crops, raise livestock, catch fish, manage forests, process food, trade in markets, teach and innovate. Their work weaves through the land, the water and the knowledge that sustain us, connecting food from the farm to our tables. Women make up 41% of the global agri-food workforce, yet too often they have less access to land, finance, technology, and training. When women farmers are empowered, everyone benefits. Hunger diminishes, dietary diversity increases, incomes grow, and households are more resilient to shocks. Closing gaps between women and men in agri-food systems can be transformative. It could reduce food insecurity for 45 million people. Empowered women, transforming agri-food systems.
I hope you enjoyed the video and that you take away the slogan for the year, Empowered Women Transforming Agri-Food Systems. Before we move to the next session with our panelists, I'd like to hear from all of you. So if you'd like to take out your phones, I'm encouraging you to take out your phones and point them at the camera. There should be a QR code appearing. And we would like for you to answer this question. When you think of women farmers, what words come to your mind first? Two of you are typing. Resilience, generosity, that's a lovely word, warriors, place, strength, justice or injustice, empowerment, sincerity, hardship, A lot of resilience and strength coming up. Nourishment, love, care, the need for land rights. Love in Spanish, amor, is there as well. Development, dignity, dedication, courage, power. I think we'll end with power. Thank you so much for that. I have another question for you, though. We'd like to know what you think should be the top priority for the International Year of the Woman Farmer. And you can just type anything that comes to mind. Maybe try to keep it short to help me, though. The inclusion of youth, that's very important. Finance, equality, land access, empowerment for young women, access to land, digital. I was very happy to hear Ireland speak about that. Elevating the voices of women in the South. The burden of care, which Her Royal Highness spoke about. Resilience. I think we'll let this keep running and we'll check back with everybody later, but I'm very happy to see how much focus there is on the visibility for women, on their power, their collective action, and their stories. So let me invite our panelists, if you could thank them one more time, and we'll bring our next panel up to the stage. Thank you so much. We're now very happy to feature the voices of women farmers themselves in this segment, and also to hear from a couple of institutions which represent collective action for women's land rights, but also investment in gender and women's empowerment in agri-food systems, as well as from a member of a parliament, regional parliament, who's going to share her perspectives as well. So I'm trying to bring together all of these voices today to highlight just how many facets it takes in order for us to achieve these objectives. You heard our previous speakers talking about the importance of partnership and working together. And I hope that our speakers will also reflect on the realities of women farmers on the ground, complementing what we heard from Her Royal Highness and from Ireland, and help us think about what meaningful progress would mean in 2026 for the International Year of the Woman Farmer. I'm going to introduce each of the speakers as they speak. So first, I have the pleasure of, where did she go? Oh, okay, let's change nameplates. Hold on one second. Beth will have later. I'm very pleased to introduce Ana Marcén. I'm going to speak in Spanish, and so is Ana Marcén, so if you'd like to put on your headphones. Ana Marcén es la fundadora de Escuela de Alencias e emprendedora rural con más de 20 años de experiencia. Ahora se dedica a acompañar y empoderar a mujeres que desean transformar sus vidas y sus proyectos desde sus propios pueblos. Es la cofundadora de Ecomonegros, una iniciativa pionera en agricultura ecológica, y fue presidenta del Gremio de Panaderos de Zaragoza durante 8 años. Es autora de 3 libros y 4 discos y combina su creatividad artística con una sólida visión empresarial. Ana, desde tu labor como emprendedora rural y mentora, ¿cuál es el cambio más poderoso que has presenciado, tanto a nivel personal como dentro de tu red?
Como yo en un lugar como este, y a veces yo tampoco lo comprendo lo que está pasando desde que sigo mi corazón. Estaría mucho más tranquila siendo simplemente agricultora como toda mi familia, pero me compliqué la vida transformando trigos antiguos en pan y repostería ecológica y después saliendo de mi empresa para acompañar a otras mujeres. Pero lo llevo en la sangre y sé que no va a parar. Comprendí, como has preguntado, comprendí que yo no puedo hacerlo sola y que necesitaba formarme y transformarme y necesitaba referentes, gente que hubiera hecho lo que yo quería hacer en otros territorios. Hay mucha gente apoyando a la mujer rural, pero hay mucha que no. Y yo quiero que las mujeres rurales, que cuando vengan del campo, vengan cantando. Yo seguiré, si vais a aplaudir cada vez que cante, va a ser... Yo seguiré apoyando a la mujer agricultora y transformadora y rural, mucho más allá del 2026. Y para eso quiero perder el miedo a ocupar mi lugar, el miedo a brillar, el miedo a hacer todo lo que yo quiera hacer y el miedo a ser yo en mi pueblo, que es el miedo que limita a las mujeres. Los pueblos necesitan mujeres como tú, pero tú necesitas vivir bien en ellos, a todos los niveles, físico, mental, emocional y espiritual. Yo no sé si estamos a tiempo de salvar nuestros pueblos, la soberanía alimentaria o la biodiversidad, pero sí sé que las mujeres tienen mucho que decir en este aspecto, porque si hay muchas pequeñas personas haciendo pequeñas cosas en lugares pequeños, no podrán con nosotras. Así que, porque con su intensidad y su sensibilidad pueden transformar el mundo, su capacidad de amar y su creatividad hacen claro un día oscuro. Si ha llegado el momento y te sientes sola e incapaz, abre tu voz, toma un respiro y sal. Abre tu voz, toma un respiro y sal. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Ana, para tu conmovedora intervención y para compartir tu voz con todos nosotros. And now I'm going to move to our next speaker, Ms. Melissa Gabriela de Silva Vieira, who is originally from Mato Grosso, Brazil. She comes from a family of small-scale farmers, and she has been involved in the labor movement since she was a child. And at the age of 15, she began her youth action, and she later took roles in Mato Grosso Federation and the National Youth Commission of CONTAG, as well as the Marcha de Margaridas, which she's going to talk about today. Melissa is going to speak in Portuguese, but you will be able to hear the translation in Spanish, English, or any of the other official languages which you've been listening already. Melissa, por favor.
É uma alegria estar aqui representando as mulheres rurais do Brasil, em nome da CONTAG, organização com mais de 62 anos de luta em defesa dos direitos das trabalhadoras e trabalhadores rurais. Também é uma honra representar a Marcha das Margaridas, que é uma das maiores ações de mulheres rurais da América Latina, e sou suspeita em dizer que é a do mundo. A Marcha das Margaridas é organizada pela CONTAG em parceria com mais de 16 organizações parceiras. A marcha é uma ação feminista, anticapitalista, antirracista, construída pela força das mulheres do campo, das águas e das florestas. Mulheres que produzem alimentos, cuidam da vida e sustentam seus territórios. Não é apenas um ato. A Marcha das Margaridas é uma plataforma política viva que viabiliza milhões de mulheres, conquista os direitos e aponta caminhos para um país mais justo e do bem viver. Em 2023, reunimos cerca de 100 mil mulheres marchando em Brasília na 7ª edição da marcha. Em 2027, queremos ampliar a participação internacional e levar a nossa pauta às instâncias globais. Ao longo dos 25 anos de marcha, conquistamos avanços importantes, como a titulação da terra em nome das mulheres, linhas de créditos específicas, direitos sociais e políticas de cuidado. Mas ainda precisamos avançar. Ampliar acesso à terra, fortalecer a assistência técnica com recorte de gênero, promover a transição agroecológica, enfrentar a violência no campo e garantir que todas as mulheres vivam com dignidade. A construção da marcha é coletiva e democrática, envolvendo federações, sindicatos que compõem o sistema CONTAG, as organizações parceiras, com formações políticas e mobilizações de base em todo o país. Reafirmamos nosso compromisso com a igualdade, a justiça social, a soberania e a segurança alimentar. E enfrentamos todas as formas de violência contra as mulheres. Seguiremos em marcha até que todas as mulheres sejam livres, porque enquanto houver injustiça, haverá margaridas organizadas, florescendo e lutando por um Brasil e um mundo com justiça social, climática, contra todas as formas de violência e opressão.
Muito obrigada, Melissa. I won't speak in Portuguese because otherwise we'll put the translation system in tilt, but really appreciate you sharing your experience with us, and also to both of you for the beautiful photos that were being played while you were speaking as well. And thank you for talking about the importance of collective voice and social movements in transforming the opportunities for rural women. Now we're going to move to one of our online speakers. We have the Honorable Françoise Uwumukiza, who is joining us online. As I mentioned, Honorable Uwumukiza is a member of the East African Legislative Assembly, serving her second term as an active member of the Committee on General Purpose, which deals with ensuring that gender mainstreaming is available in all EAC programs and projects, and undertakes budget scrutiny of the community from a gender perspective. She has been a fierce architect of change for women farmers and is deeply committed to advancing food security and nutrition in the region. Honorable, how can policy and legal frameworks bring transformative change to the realities of women farmers? And what reforms has the East African Legislative Assembly undertaken to address women's issues in agri-food systems?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I'm just honored to be here with you all. Women are central to Africa's food production and rural economies. Yet, in many of our countries, the laws and the policies shaping agri-food systems still do not fully reflect their roles, their needs, or the barriers they face. This gap between contribution and recognition continues to limit women's productivity, rights, and economic opportunities. Policy and legal frameworks can change this reality in three decisive ways. First and foremost, by securing women's rights over land, resources, and decision-making. Because across the East African community, women farmers still face discriminatory inheritance laws, unequal land ownership, and limited access to water, finance, and technology. A gender transformative legal framework can correct this by guaranteeing equal land and inheritance rights, for instance, harmonizing the family and the land laws with the gender commitments, ensuring that women are represented in local land governance bodies, and embedding gender equality in agricultural subsidies, extension services, and access to markets. But if women had the same access to productive resources as men in the past and now, food insecurity in Africa would fall dramatically. This is not a theoretical argument, it's an economic and social imperative. Secondly, by addressing the structural barriers that go beyond agriculture, women farmers cannot be empowered if care work remains invisible, if financial services exclude them, or if climate adaptation programs fail to reach them. These barriers determine who has time, resources, and resilience to participate in agriculture. This is why policy reform must also tackle the burden of unpaid care work, barriers to credit and insurance, digital exclusion, and vulnerability to climate-related shocks. Legal frameworks must therefore be integrated, linking agriculture, finance, climate, social protection, and education. Thirdly, by creating accountability mechanisms, legislation only matters if it's implemented. We need a gender-responsive budget, mandatory reporting on access to services, and disaggregated data systems that make women visible in our statistics. This is exactly the spirit of the International Year of the Woman Farmer we are launching today. But what is really IYALA doing practically? IYALA has already taken important steps, and the momentum is growing. First, we introduced a champion, the EAC Gender Equality and Equity Bill. And this bill seeks to harmonize national laws and secure women's rights across sectors, including agriculture, land governance, and economic participation. Second, through our committees, General Purpose Committee, the one I serve as a member, but also the, the Committee on Agriculture, Tourism, and Natural Resources, I was chairing as a chair. And now we are even working through our oversight role. We are working to ensure that regional agricultural trade, seeds extension, and digital programs integrate gender considerations and genuinely reflect the realities of women farmers, including young women and cross-border traders who are vital to regional food markets. And the other is actually actively engaged also in global initiatives such as Rome, FAO Rome-based initiatives like parliamentary partnerships on agroecology, the right to adequate food through the Parliamentary Pact. And for your information, yesterday we passed a resolution for EAC partner states to include in their policies and laws the right to food, to adequate food, with no one left behind. It was it's now a resolution of the House. I was the second of the motion. Collaboration with the gender division championing the gender lex for women farmers data availability, along with the women in agri-food systems, parliamentary handbook under development, and then continental platforms such as the African Food System Parliamentary Network, ASPAN, and the Zero Hunger Coalition, the Eastern Africa Parliamentary Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition, YAPA FSN, and the African Parliamentary Network for Climate Action, and various regional bodies to support the implementation of the African Union Commitment on Gender Equality in Agri-Food System, supporting a CADAP strategy and the Kampala Declaration. This shows a clear direction. We are moving from recognition to rights, from visibility to power, and from marginalization to leadership for women farmers. Thank you for having IYALA on board of this great and engaging initiative. We are there for you, there for women farmers.
Thank you so much, Honorable. We were very, very pleased to hear about all of the initiatives that you mentioned and the good work that's already going on, and we appreciate that you're there for us. Thank you for mentioning access to water, to climate resilient technologies, and for speaking about the right to food as well. We really appreciate your intervention. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to move to a next online speaker, Dr. Jemima Njuki, who's also joining from online from Abidjan. She's a national of the Republic of Kenya, and she is the African Development Bank Group's Director for Gender, Women, and Civil Society. She provides intellectual and strategic leadership for the bank group's agenda on gender equality, women's empowerment, and civil society engagement, working across technical, geographic, and institutional boundaries to support the delivery of inclusive development solutions. But of course, many of you know her, and she has more than 2 decades of experience spanning gender in agriculture and food systems, and has been working to advance gender mainstreaming across sectors for a long time. Jemima, we're so happy to see you online. Let me pass you the floor.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and it's such a pleasure and privilege for me to join you and for the African Development Bank to join you as we launch the International Year of the Women Farmer. For the African Development Bank, and I know for all of us, this is not just a symbolic gesture, but it reinforces a fundamental truth that we all know, that women farmers are central in powering rural areas. They're central in powering agri-food systems transformation for Africa and other continents. They're central to powering and transforming our continent. And I really know that this for a fact, as you mentioned, Lauren. I grew up on a farm for over 20 years. I've been working on women in agriculture. And so it's been a little pleasure for me to see the world come together to celebrate women, women farmers. But we also know as data and FAO data and other data has shown us that women are doing this, still facing systemic inequalities that deny them the resources that are their right, but that would also really accelerate this transformation of the world that we all seek. And so this year really provides us with a transformative opportunity to really reshape the narrative of food security and of women farmers. At the bank, we understand that this transformation is only going to be possible if we eliminate these structural barriers that limits women's full participation in agriculture. And here we are taking the whole scope of the bank's, the bank's mandate, whether it is gender responsive infrastructure that allows women to reduce the unpaid care work burdens that they share, whether it is issues of land, of access to finance, technology, and other productive resources. I will say one of the bold commitments that we have made as a bank is that 100% of our operations, all of them, including every project in the agriculture sector, must do more than integrate gender. They have to actively work to address gender equalities, and we are tracking the impact that those projects have on women and girls across the continent. We have a Feed Africa strategy that centers gender equality and that centers women farmers in it. We have direct investments. I'll give you an example of work we are doing here in Côte d'Ivoire with partners such as UN Women, working with over 300 cooperatives and expanding their economic power from their digital literacy, getting them the technologies that they need, setting up a digital buy from women platform that's allowing them to access export markets, but also making sure that we are working with local governments to increase their access to land. That thing that we are very keen on is making sure that women actually do have the financial resources that they need. So through initiatives such as our Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, our flagship program on unlocking finance for women entrepreneurs, through our Africa Climate Challenge Fund, we are supporting countries and communities to implement gender-responsive climate and energy actions, putting money in the hands of women entrepreneurs who are in the agriculture sector, but also making sure that we have targeted smart agricultural solutions for women farmers. I want to say these are not just isolated anecdotes. They are living proof that if we are strategic, gender-focused investments can really deliver scalable and continent-wide transformation. And this year for us really offers us a moment and a responsibility to shift from just acknowledging what women do to really moving to action to ensure that the women who feed the continent are fully recognized, they're supported as the innovators, producers, entrepreneurs, and the leaders that we know they already are. In closing, I would really want to ask us, it always looks like the job ahead of us in terms of empowering women in agriculture is long and hard. But I want us to really focus on a few things, and I call them the 5 R's. When we work on care, we talk about the 5 R's. And for me, these are the 5 R's of supporting women farmers. We really must recognize women, recognize the role that they play as producers, as processors, as traders, Women on the farm are our scientists. They're discovering things every day. They are leading innovations. The second is that we must resource women. We must ensure that they have access to ownership and control over the resources that will enable them to thrive in agriculture. A lot of our women's farmers are surviving in agriculture, not thriving, because they don't always have the resources that they need. We must ensure they are represented. And it's been so good for me to see even just the launch of this, having such great representation of women farmers themselves. They're not just producers of food, they are leaders, they have ideas, they're innovators. And so we need to see their representation, their voice and leadership across the whole sector. We must remunerate women for their work. Data has shown us that we pay women 80 cents for every dollar that we pay men. This is unacceptable. We must close this gender gap and ensure that we remunerate women farmers adequately. And finally, the rights of women. We must recognize, guarantee, and secure their rights to resources, to dignified lives. It was really good to hear the Honorable also talk about food sovereignty, because we know those rural women farmers sometimes are also the hungriest. They produce our food, but they are also the hungriest. We must recognize their right to food and their right to dignified livelihoods. So if you take anything from me, please take those R's: recognize, resource, remunerate their rights. And I know there's another 5R another R that I'm forgetting. Thank you so much. And I do hope, as I finish, Roland, that while we use the 2026 year of International Year of the Woman Farmer, that it is a momentum for us to make sure that every year after 2026 is the International Year of the Woman Farmer, because for women farmers, it all counts.
Thank you so much, Jemima. We loved your 5 R's and the call to make every year the International Year of the Woman Farmer. I now have our last panelist, Ms. Marcia Vigoda, who's the director of the International Land Coalition. She brings over 30 years of experience in international development, humanitarian action, partnerships, resource mobilization, gender equality, organizational development, and governance to her leadership of the International Land Coalition. And she has held senior roles in various organizations, including CARE and OCHA. Marcy, I have a question for you, because one of the core objectives of this international year is really to build stronger awareness of the importance of women's land tenure and their rights. And from your perspective at ILC, what priorities should we focus on to make sure that this is translated into real and lasting improvements in women's access to land?
Thank you, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here speaking on behalf of the International Land Coalition. We are the largest and most diverse coalition, with 323 members across the globe, working on land rights and ranging from grassroots organizations, some of whom are here, to UN organizations, including FAO, IFAD, UN Women, and others. We also love the 5 R's, by the way, over here. We are writing them down, and of course in Spanish it's 4 R's and 1 D. The history of ILC is actually quite relevant to your question. We were founded 30 years ago at a conference hosted by IFAD and the European Union on eradicating hunger and poverty. And we very quickly became laser focused on people-centered land governance, because we recognize how foundational land governance is to achieve sustainable development, food security, biodiversity, climate resilience, and yes, gender equality. When women have secure land rights, the benefits to families, communities, and the planet are measurable. And we have heard this today really from all of the speakers, and in the Menti poll as well. Just yesterday, I read a study coming out of the University of Pretoria looking at land policy reform in 18 countries, mostly in Africa, over the last 2 decades. And the good news is that in these 18 countries, there are significant shifts towards strengthening women's land rights, and some really stellar examples, Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, where the implementation of standards and benchmarks are making a real difference to women's access, control, and ownership of land. And yet, there are also examples of stalled reform, of gaps between policy and implementation, and countries where the legal framework hasn't been updated in the last 50 years. Data from our own Global Land Observatory, which comprises FAO, CIRAD, and ILC, data that was presented here in this room during the CFS, show that in half of the countries for which data is available, the gap between men and women's ownership of land exceeds 20 percentage points. While women are the backbone of our food systems, feeding families, nurturing communities, and sustaining traditions, only 1 in 3 women owns land. And this isn't just an injustice, it's a barrier holding back entire societies. So, for this International Year to create lasting change, we must focus on 3 priorities. First, continue to give visibility to the importance of women's land rights. It's fantastic that this is a central objective for the International Year. Share stories and good examples. Share data. Invest in the data. There isn't enough. And always ask that question, what about land rights? Land is political. We know that. It's easier to look for technical fixes. But without addressing foundational issues like land tenure, we will be hampered in achieving our goals of food security, thriving communities, and peace and security. Second, we must strengthen land tenure frameworks and ensure implementation. Countries are asking for support in this area, and we have the tools. We have the voluntary guidelines on the responsible governance of tenure, agreed in this building in 2012, and as Maximo mentioned earlier, the voluntary guidelines on gender equality. We have regional standards and frameworks as well. But standards mean nothing without action, so monitoring and supporting the implementation is key. And then third, we need to embrace the complexity of women's lives through an intersectional lens. Women may be pastoralists, indigenous peoples, or youth. They can be all of those things at once. And yet we still treat women and ecosystems in silos and boxes. This needs to change. 2026 and the International Year of the Women Farmer and the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, launched 2 days ago in this room, present such possibilities to turn awareness into action and action into transformation. Let's seize this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for reminding us about the 2 international years, and we're working very closely together in synergy with the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists as well. Now, I'm going to give 1 minute to each of you to answer a question. If you could send one message directly to global leaders about women farmers' empowerment, what would it be? And I'm going to start again with you, Marcy.
Thank you. Here's my message. The evidence is clear. When women have secure land rights, transformation follows. Higher productivity and income, improved food security, better nutrition, health, education, we've heard that today. Greater climate resilience. So, engage meaningfully with all women, women of all ages, farmers, pastoralists, fishers, indigenous women, women restoring land and protecting ecosystems, women resisting destructive projects that threaten their territories, and those driving innovation in agriculture. Listen to the full diversity of their knowledge, their priorities, and their solutions, and craft public policies that genuinely respond to them. Embrace their wisdom and trust their leadership. At a time when there is a global rollback on women's rights and attacks on women's agency, This International Year is the opportunity to stay the course, to ensure that all women have the rights, the resources, and the land they need to shape a sustainable future for all.
Great, thank you. Honorable Francois, I'm going to give you the same question for 1 minute. What is the message you want to send directly to global leaders about women farmers' empowerment?
Thank you very much. Actually, this question is timely and also essential. I'm just, impressed to have got it. My today's motto, and it's dedicated to women farmers as we launch this beautiful initiative, is that empower the women farmers rise, hunger falls. I will tell the leaders, you global leaders, if you want to reduce hunger, build climate resilience, and grow our economies, start by empowering the women who already produce much of the world's food. Invest in their land rights, their access to finance, their technologies, and their leadership, and the hunger will fall by itself. The fastest, smartest, and the most cost-effective path to global food security runs through the hands of women farmers. I will tell them, and I would like to add, do not celebrate women farmers for 1 year, for just next year. Fund them, protect them, and put them at the center of global decision-making every year. I beg to submit. I thank you. I'm honored.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Jemima, Dr. Njuki, could you answer the same question? One message, please.
Thank you. The one message that I've always given is women have always been in agriculture. We know that. And my message to global leaders, to local leaders, wherever they are, is it is now time for us to make sure that agriculture actually works for women. And the only way agriculture works and agri-food systems work for women is to constantly ask ourselves, what is the impact of our policies on women? How have women contributed to those policies so that we bring women from the sidelines to the mainstream, because they really are the mainstream. And this also then gives me an opportunity to go back to my 5 R's, that we must recognize what women do. We must resource women. We must make sure that they are represented across all spaces, including their voices being heard in policy making. We must remunerate women, and we must respect and recognize their rights. We do that, and we will make sure that agriculture actually works for women in the same way that women are working for agriculture and in agriculture.
Thank you. Melissa.
O empoderamento das mulheres agricultoras é uma condição indispensável para a construção de um futuro sustentável e igualitário. As mulheres que vivem, produzem nos territórios rurais desempenham um papel central na segurança alimentar, na proteção de biodiversidade, na gestão responsável de recursos naturais e nas transmissões de saberes ancestrais. É fundamental para enfrentamento da crise climática. No entanto, continuamos enfrentando barreiras que persistem ao acesso à terra, ao crédito e às tecnologias, aos mercados e aos espaços de decisões. Reconhecer e fortalecer o protagonismo das mulheres rurais não é apenas uma ação de equidade, é uma estratégia global de desenvolvimento, porque nós, mulheres do campo, das águas, das florestas, somos grandes responsáveis pela eliminação da fome, na redução da pobreza, na mitigação e adaptação climática. É crucial que os governos, organismos internacionais, instituições financeiras, multilaterais adotem políticas e mecanismos que assegurem o acesso das mulheres à terra e aos meios de produções, ampliem sua participação nos espaços de governança, promovam transição agroecológica. O mundo tem muito a ganhar quando coloca mulheres agricultoras no centro das soluções globais. Que possamos avançar juntos com compromisso, responsabilidade, visão de um futuro com justiça social, climática. Pois quando uma mulher agricultora avança, toda a humanidade avança com ela.
Thank you so much. When women advance, everyone can advance with them. Anna's going to answer the question in a very special way. So we're going to let her close this panel.
Gracias, Taco. Hoy es el mejor día para hablar de por qué estamos aquí, de lo que aprendimos en nuestro camino, de cómo hemos de seguir, de haber despertado nuestra conciencia.